Welcome to the Mad Dad Movie Review, a podcast full of first-time movie reviews starring Mads and her dad.
I'm Mads.
And I'm her dad, and this is Mad Dad Movie Review. How goes it, kids and heroes, and welcome back to an all-new episode of the Mad Dad Movie Review. I hope everyone tuning in is having a nice, enjoyable, festive holiday season. All things considered, of course, as best as you can. Mads, how you doing, girl?
I've been doing good. Just been doing schoolwork lately.
All right, wait, just school? Has it been like just balls to the wall school, or have you been doing like, what else do you do? You don't do school 24/7. How's a day in the life of Madeline Ryan Snyder?
Wake up, get ready, do school, watch YouTube, make TikToks, nuts, eat dinner.
You make TikToks, all right. So that's what the kids are doing these days. What? No, I've never downloaded it, never used the app once, couldn't tell you a thing about it. Anyway, I'm pretty excited about this week's episode. I've been wanting to talk about this one with you for a while. I've been wanting to show you this one for a little while now. Of course, we are talking about Boyhood from Richard Linklater.
In 2002, director Richard Linklater cast a 6-year-old boy. Over the next 12 years, they made movie history.
You guys ready to have some fun?
Now, discover what the New York Times calls one of the most extraordinary films of the 21st century. Boyhood touches something deep and true. There has never been anything like this film.
What do you want to be, Mason? What do you want to do?
Boyhood, rated R. In select theaters July 11th.
A movie that, for those of you who do not know, was filmed over the course of 12 years. And Linklater was able to get everything edited, chopped down, put together, and make the Sundance premiere in early 2014. So good on him for that. I know this was a passion project of his. I remember hearing about this movie back when I remember hearing about it around the early to mid aughts. Like, I want to say probably when they first started filming is when I first caught wind of the project. But of course, when you hear about things like that, you're not really sure if it's going to be a successful thing, if it's going to really turn into anything. Well, if I had any doubts back then, boy, was I wrong, because here we are today talking about said film. But before we get into everything, I want to let everyone know that they can tune into previous episodes of the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google, Overcast, Podbean, Breaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and wherever else you enjoy your favorite shows. You can check us out on Facebook.com at
Mad Dad Movie Review.
Instagram.com at
Mad Dad Movie Review.
YouTube.com at
Mad Dad Movie Review.
and finally Twitter.com at
Mad Dad Movie Pod.
And of course, if you have any questions, comments, or requests, you can always email them to maddadmoviereview@gmail.com. Let's do shout-outs.
Baba Booey.
All right, Mads. Who are you going to be shouting out this week?
I don't have anybody this week.
All right, so this week, I guess I'm going to be the only one doing a shout-out. Going to be shouting out the guys over at Junk Food Cinema Podcast. That's Brian Salisbury and Robert G. Cargill. They do a weekly show, basically kind of like what we do, movie reviews, do some obscure titles, ones that you don't really hear about too often. And they talk about it for an hour to an hour and a half, or if you're Last Action Hero, you get a special 3-episode block dedicated to you. This week, I wanted to give them a shout out because their newest episode caught me by surprise, because they talked about one of the most underrated vampire films of the 80s with David Bowie, called The Hunger. And for as much as I love that movie, it doesn't get talked about enough, and I was just jumping for joy as soon as I saw that they were covering that film last Thursday. So, yeah, check it out. And, of course, they have a whole 8-year library of episodes to check out. So they've got 8 years worth of films. Think about that. 52 weeks in a year, 8 years. Do the math. It's a lot of films. So, yeah, Junk Food Cinema, you guys, shout out to y'all. All right, so getting back to Boyhood, I kind of already talked about, my first time hearing about it, but my first time seeing the movie, unfortunately, I did not see it when I was in theaters, and I'm still kicking myself to this day because of that, because I really wanted to see it. It was just 2014 when this came out in the summertime. I was literally working 70-hour work weeks, working the stamping press at my dad's former print finishing company. Yeah, that summer was pretty hectic. I was going in there working at least 12-hour shifts, going home, eating, and pretty much going to bed. So I really wasn't going to the movies that much that summer. So I caught this eventually towards the screener season, as I call it. I caught the screener for it around awards time, which was around December of that year. I watched it, and movie's been great ever since. This is one of the movies that just huge fan when I first saw it, and I'm still as much of a fan today. It's a great film. It's a special film, and we'll be talking about it a lot today and going into the details of the why it's so special. How about you, Mads? What was your first impressions of Boyhood?
I liked it, like usual. I don't really know what to say about it. I mean, I like the movie a lot. I like how it goes, like, throughout the years, and it's actual years. Like, they filmed actually once a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 13. This movie, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's on me for thinking you had more to say for something like this, because I just thought that maybe this would kind of connect with you more, hit home, because it tackles just what you're in the middle of tackling yourself, just childhood in general. So, I mean, did you take anything from the movie, like, as far as, like, how things are going? Have you, like, thought about it, like, assessed yourself after watching this? Anything like that? Anything at all?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know.
You don't think so? All right. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
So, let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
So, Boyhood premiered January 19th, 2014 at the Sundance Film Festival, where it was later released on July 11th, 2014 from IFC Films. It opened up in 19th place against Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Transformers, Age of Extinction, Tammy, and 22 Jump Street. Opening weekend box office was $388,000, going on to gross $57.3 million on a $4 million budget. It was directed by Richard Linklater, produced by Richard Linklater, Kathleen Sutherland, Jonathan Serling, and John Sloss. Written for the screen by Richard Linklater, edited by Sandra Adair, cinematography by Lee Daniel and Shane Kelly, starring Eller Coltrane as Mason Evans Jr., Patricia Arquette as Olivia, Ethan Hawke as Mason Evans Sr., Laurea Linklater as Samantha Evans, Libby Valeri as Catherine, Marco Perella as Bill Wellbrock, and Brad Hawkins as Jim. Let's take a walk over to the Critics' Corner and see what they had to say about the film. Alright, so Boyhood currently has a 97% at Rotten Tomatoes from 321 reviews. It is sitting at a rare 100, a perfect 100 score on Metacritic, from 50 reviews, and it has an average Letterboxd score of 3.8 out of 5. The general consensus reads, Epic in technical scale, but breathlessly intimate in narrative scope, Boyhood is a sprawling investigation of the human condition. The New York Times stated that the film's realism was jolting and so brilliantly realized and understated that it would be easy to overlook. Another New York Times writer, A.O. Scott, called Boyhood the best film of 2014, saying that he could not think of any film that had affected him the way Boyhood had in the 15 years of his professional career, as a critic, of course. And Peter Travers from the Rolling Stone also named Boyhood the best film of the year, calling it the year's biggest emotional powerhouse. Meanwhile, Peter Bradshaw at The Guardian called it one of the greatest films of the decade. Richard Roeper gave Boyhood an A+, calling it one of the greatest films he has ever seen. And according to CriticsTop10.com, it was included on 536 Best of 2014 lists and topped 189 of them, a record by the site's count. So, what I've taken in from all of this is that this film was, rightfully so, universally loved. It's just, I don't know how you could not like this movie, honestly. Like, I'm just going to be blunt. I don't know, unless you find movies like this boring because there's not a car chase inserted every 10 minutes, or someone's not getting their throat slashed every half hour, or whatever, or there's not, like, I don't know, an unfunny gag, something, I don't know. But this movie, like, I don't know. I'm just going into it because I'm just a huge fan of it and don't understand the hate. Speaking of my love for this film and why I love it, I love Boyhood because it's such an original concept. I love it because of Patricia Arquette's powerhouse performance. I love it because it features the Austin indie scene more than expected. I love it because of co-star Ethan Hawke's less is more approach. I love it because we get an interesting and rare bird's eye view of Eller Coltrane's growth as an actor. I love it because of the brother-sister dynamic between Mason and Samantha. I love this film because of the Dazed and Confused convenience store clerk's cameo. I love it because of the movie's soundtrack consisting of popular songs from each year. I love this film because it doesn't feel like I'm watching a regular film, but rather a unique documentary of a boy's life. I love it because of the real issues the story tackles. I love it because it finally earned Patricia Arquette her well-deserved Oscar. And finally, I love Boyhood because everyone involved were fully committed and achieved an amazing feat over 12 years. All right, it all started when, which is the film's origins. In May 2002, Linklater said that he would begin shooting an untitled film in his home city of Houston that summer. He planned to assemble the cast and crew for a few weeks, filming annually for 12 years. He said, "I've long wanted to tell the story of a parent-child relationship that follows a boy from the 1st through the 12th grade and ends with him going off to college. But the dilemma is that kids change so much that it is impossible to cover that much ground. And I am totally ready to adapt the story to whatever he is going through." IFC, the film's distributor, committed to a film budget of $200,000 per year, or $2.4 million over the 12-year period shoot.
So, Richard, what made you decide to do this project?
I'm asking myself that right at this moment. No, I'm kidding. I was turning 40, and I'd been a parent for about 8 years, and I wanted to say something about childhood. I was trying to make a movie about childhood, but then the dilemma hit me of like, well, what part of childhood? All my ideas were all over the place.
Oh! Don't worry about it.
Wish we could use the bumpers.
You don't want the bumpers. Life doesn't give you bumpers.
The grid of 1 through 12, those grades you kind of have to go to. That's kind of what you're sentenced to from childhood. You're gonna be in school through 12th grade. You're gonna live in your parents' house. There was this thing beckoning beyond that, and I wanted to get there in the movie. And that's what I had to express about growing up. Finally, I just had this one big idea. We'll just get the same cast and we'll film a little bit each year. Like, could you do that? Would that work as a movie? I met a lot of kids back then, and Eller, he seemed the most thoughtful in a way, a little ethereal. I liked the way his mind worked. He wasn't even reading yet at that age, but I liked his taste and how he was kind of processing. We were sort of a family, you know, he was like the son I never had. He was maturing along with my own daughter, Lorelei. They were like siblings in a way. Eller, throw a stuffed animal the way you do.
Is it fun having a little brother?
Well, yes, but I like being an only child better.
Describe Eller.
Well, he's interesting. He's nice most of the time. He dresses like a teenager. He really does.
He said I dress like a teenager.
Once Lorelei kind of knew about the project, I don't think I could have lived my life in a normal fashion with some other girl in that part.
What are your favorite movies?
Well, Waking Life was cool, but well, the animation was cool, but well, it was kind of boring for me. Not to insult you, Daddy, but it was kind of boring for a little child.
I think my original conception, I couldn't help but be a little more autobiographical, thinking, well, maybe a kid who's into sports and all that. And Elder's not really like that at all, but I could definitely see that he was going to mature into an interesting adult.
Door.
When Richard first called me and he asked me, what are you going to be doing the next 12 years? He didn't tell me about my part at first, he just told me about the idea. And I said, I want to do it. And then I said, oh, what's the part? I should probably ask you that.
There's my mom in the movie, and then there's her son in real life. But it's supposed to be me. She has like the exact same color of eyes, like the same tone of skin. She would be totally believable as my mom.
When I first came out, their parents let me basically stay with them for a couple days. Like I took Eller to the laundromat while Lorelei went to an art class. So just trying to get them somewhat comfortable, at least asking me for things like, I'm hungry or I want food or whatever thing it is. She haunts a toilet? And they were so cute. It's so sweet. We did so many art projects. We painted the walls of stories that they liked. His bunk had some and her bunk had another, and we were painting over them. Just the layers of us that were in everything.
What if after we move, Dad's trying to find us and he can't?
Oh, that won't be a problem. He can call Grandma and she'll tell him.
Hey! Oh my! Oh, look at you! You're so big, MJ.
Michael Frosty!
You know, the film's called Boyhood, but it could be called Motherhood, Fatherhood, Bumbling Through Adulthood. It was an opportunity to see parents evolve as well as kids.
Run the lab! Let's hear it for the father! Woo! You guys are gonna be seeing a lot more of me, okay? I missed you two real bad while I was gone, okay? I want you to know that. I just needed to take some time.
It's kind of a simple idea, really, to watch time work through a film, but it's so impractical on a production level.
Are you gonna like let it grow?
Next year, I'm thinking your contrast is better. The shorter it is, then it's long. It'll seem like, ooh, a lot of time has gone by. You know, to shoot 3 days, you still have to cast and get locations and get a crew and rent equipment. And each time it was like its own film.
Action!
I got lucky that IFC Productions, who funded my last 2 films, liked the idea. It's low budget enough. I mean, they're giving me just enough every year, but do it professionally. It's very important that we're shooting in 35 millimeter. I want the film to look like one film, almost to be seamlessly dissolving from one year into the next, just people subtly aging. So I had to shoot that on film. I think if I would have done it high def or any of the current technologies, it would be very dated visually.
I mean, he didn't even ask. He just cut it.
Now I can see your pretty eyes and your foxy face. Do you think that being raised by a single mom has affected you?
Yeah, I mean, my mom was very young when she had me. I think she was 22, 19 when she had my oldest sister. We sort of, in that way, grew up together. You hear people who have teen moms say, oh, we grew up together, but there's something to that. You go through their own maturation, their own dating. I saw my mom get married a few times, a lot of relationships. She went to graduate school. We were kind of pulled through her entire life.
Might as well dive into what the final product became. So without further ado, let's talk about Boyhood. First and foremost, it's important to note that the movie starts in the year 2002. It starts off with Mason and his mother Olivia. We see that Mason is curious but distracted at things, and like school, for example. We find out that he's not turning in his homework, and when his mom asks him about it, he says because the teacher never asks. So he's kind of lazy like that too. Always has excuses for his wrongdoing, and so on and so forth. That's how the movie kicks off, and then we see Mason and his friend Tommy. They're in a drainage ditch, spray painting the concrete wall down there, and then that's when Mason's sister Samantha comes over looking for Mason because he has to come home. And then we cut to the home life of Mason, his sister, Samantha, and Olivia. I don't want to call it a broken home, but it's just this woman, Olivia, doing all the raising on her own. You can already tell right away that Olivia is also, she's got some growing up of her own to do. So this movie is not only telling the 12 years, boyhood, childhood, whatever, of this character Mason, but I feel like his mother is another, and it's for good reason too. I mean, there's a really good reason why Patricia Arquette won the Academy Award for this role, because her role to me is just as important as Mason's. And here in this scene, where we see that she's dating this guy Ted, who comes over and is expecting her to go out with him, but then she tells him that the babysitter fell through, but he's more than welcome to stay and hang out with them. But he's got friends waiting, so he's like, no, I'm going and doing that. But then agrees to come back later. And then we see that when he does come back later, all they're doing is fighting. You know, the kids in the bedroom, the fighting wakes them both up, and they're fighting because she's a single parent, and he feels that she's just taken away from their time. And that's the last we see of Ted in this movie. We see Mason sleeping, and then his sister knocks him over the head with a pillow, starts singing Britney Spears, Oops, I Did It Again. They start bickering like brother and sisters do. Olivia comes in to tell them to be quiet because it's too early. You know, just living the life as a single parent. And then we got Mason and Tommy, his friend again, sitting on a swing in the backyard. They're looking at lingerie and a catalog. And we see here that Mason has an introspective moment as he gazes upon a deceased bird's carcass in the dirt. And that pretty much wraps up year one. And that begins 2003, year two, with Olivia announcing to Samantha and Mason that they're going to be moving to Houston near their grandmother so that she can go back to college, because she doesn't make enough money, and that her mom's going to be closer so she can help out. But kids are not happy about this. While lying in bed, Olivia and Mason talk about his father. This is the first we hear about Mason Sr. Mason's worried because he won't be able to find or visit them when they move to Houston, but Olivia reassures him that he'll be able to find out where they are. And then we also find out that the father might be in Alaska. We see Mason helping her paint over the walls of the house. Samantha's on the phone with her friend when Mason's friend Tommy calls, but then Samantha blows him off saying that she's on the phone. He said he can't talk, that they're moving. And we see Mason painting over the growth chart on the door that they wrote in as they were growing up. And then they get into the car and drive off. Right off the bat, Samantha's got a bad attitude about everything. Mason's not saying much. Through the side mirror, we see Mason's friend Tommy riding on his bike, gesturing towards the car. But Mason still doesn't say anything. Mason and Samantha playfully fight in the back seat. Olivia makes them put a pillow in between the two of them because they keep on fighting. And that's when we watch the car as it keeps on driving towards the Houston skyline. And that takes us to the third year already, 2004. So, before I go back in, I want to bring you into this now, Madeline. The first 2 years, it's basically your introductory years of the Mason character. We still have yet to see Mason Sr., but we've heard of him at this point. Where are you at watching this? 2 years in, he's still young. He's got the sister. He's got the struggling single mother. The boyfriend is not quite working out because he's self-centered. The friend Tommy, like, where are you watching this? Like, I want to understand through the mind of a 13-year-old. Where are you at watching this here at this point?
I mean, at this point, I can't really relate to it that much at this moment, mainly because of his age at this moment. I'm pretty sure we still lived at that like one apartment. I don't remember much. It's very misty. Is that the word? I don't know.
What's the word you're trying to say?
Misty, fuzzy.
Misty,
It's a
fuzzy.
It's a fuzzy mind.
Oh, your memory's fuzzy.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Fuzzy. So I don't remember much, so I can't really relate to it right now, but later on I might.
Okay. We'll tune back in then. So now it's 2004. Mason gets ready for school. Olivia makes him eat and warns him that the bus will be there any second. While eating breakfast, Olivia tells them that their grandmother will pick them up from school and that their dad is in town. And of course, Mason wants to know if he's moving back. Mason's in school, playing a game, but the teacher makes him get back to his schoolwork. We see him quietly playing a video game at his grandmother's, whose name is Catherine. And he's listening to Samantha boast about her good grades. This is when Mason's dad, Ethan Hawke, pops up. He drives up in his Pontiac GTO. He comes to the door to get his kids. He talks to Catherine about life and asks about Olivia. He offers to bring them back home himself so that he can see Olivia. But Catherine's not really for that, but he insists and does so anyway. Mason, Samantha, and their dad are at the bowling alley. Samantha is doing great, but Mason keeps getting gutter balls. He asks if he can use the bumper, but his dad refuses.
Yes! 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 All right, don't worry about it.
Looks like we can use the bumpers.
Bumpers are for kids. You know, what are you, 2 years old? You don't want the bumpers. Life doesn't give you bumpers.
I've always liked that little comparison. The three of them sit at the cafe and talk. Dad is a little preoccupied with talking about the war in Iraq and trying to instill his beliefs on them. They clearly don't know about that and ask if he's moving back. He tries to explain why he's been gone and why him and the mother fight to begin with. He apologizes for the gutter thing and says that he will be around a lot more. So we see this a lot in movies where situations are like this, with the parents split up, the dad not seeing the kids enough, but then when he does see them, he's making them broken promises he'll be seeing them more. But this is different, and I'll explain why as we go on. So getting back to the story here, they're back at home now. He shows his dad his collection of feathers and grass and other things until Samantha comes in and steals all the attention by showing him her basketball photos. Dad's clearly more interested in Samantha playing basketball than Mason's collection. This is when Olivia comes home to find the kids and their dad. It gets really awkward really quick. Olivia and Dad walk outside to talk. Although they can't hear anything, they see them fighting out front. Dad walks off and the kids are disappointed. So Olivia and Mason are in one of her college classes. She brought him with her because he wasn't feeling well. After the class is over, she introduces Mason to her professor, Bill Wellbrock. It's clear that they have more than a teacher-professor relationship. Mason doesn't know how to feel about that. And to be honest, I wouldn't either. Samantha and Mason now have new step-siblings, Randy and Mindy. They have a sign made to welcome home Olivia and Bill. from their honeymoon because they just got married. Also, we're in 2005. The new family goes out to eat at a restaurant. They talk about their honeymoon. Bill asks if Randy got his science project done, but he didn't. Bill blames it on Mason, saying that all he did was play video games. While the waiter comes, Bill and Olivia order wine, while Mason asks for a Coke. Olivia says no and makes him get water instead. And then we get the Harry Potter sequence with the kids going to the midnight book release party for one of them Harry Potter books. What is that? That freaking sound is back.
I don't know where it's coming from, but it's annoying me, like usual.
Anyway, they participate in a Harry Potter trivia game. Samantha gets a question right, while Mason doesn't know the answer. Because she won, they all get to move up in front of the line. Bill takes Randy and Mason golfing with him. He coaches them on their swings. It's clear that Bill is underestimating Mason. Mason takes a putt, but the other two miss. Bill, Randy, and Mason stop at the liquor store, operated by the clerk from Dazed and Confused, the same clerk who warns the pregnant woman to eat her vegetables. He returns, another Richard Linklater performance, kind of playing a similar role here. It's really no different. This is kind of like this is where we start to see Bill, Olivia's new husband, is kind of a fan of the bottle. And for all the wrong reasons, because this guy is a stumbling, bumbling, stupid drunk. And, yeah, how do you feel about Bill?
I don't like him. Not the nicest guy in the world. But families, some people have families like that. Nothing you can really do about it.
Yeah, but in this situation, it's kind of implied that he started the alcoholism after marriage, unless that's just the way the film is structured, because there's so much to put in here, and this is kind of like the first of, not the first, but this is, well, yeah, it's the first signs that we see that he likes to drink. Well, actually, no. The first sign that we see of his alcoholism is back at the restaurant, because he likes to order wine. And, yeah, we see that he's hiding a handle of vodka behind the detergent at the house, high up above in the closet so Olivia or no one else can see. I gotta give it to Bill, though. The cups that this man serves himself, like, he fills it to the brim with liquor, and then just a splash of Sprite. That's it. That's like, damn, dude, why even bother with that splash? Mason and Randy are out back weeding and raking. Bill comes out and tells Mason that his dad's there, but he's pretty PO'd that they're only halfway done the job and not fully finished. On top of that, he's already mad because Samantha is not done with her chores. So on the way out the door, before Samantha and Mason can go, Bill stops them in front of Olivia and reminds them that when they come home the next day, that they've got chores to finish. And yeah, he's kind of tripping on his words and being drunk, because that's Bill right now. Oh, by the way, we're in 2006. So in the car, Dad asks Samantha and Mason a bunch of questions. They don't really have much to say. That at that point, he pulls the car over and tells them that he just wants them to tell him stuff and be more open and you know, kind of give them more than one-worded answers and just kind of just engage more in conversation. Kind of like how I am with you. Exactly how I am with you, kiddo. Like, that's exactly how, like, I'm putting myself in Ethan Hawke's shoes at this moment of the movie, because it's no different than me with you. It really isn't.
Talk to me. Samantha, how was your week? I don't know, Dad, it was kind of tough. Billy and Ellen broke up, and Ellen's kind of mad at me because she saw me talking to Billy in the cafeteria. And you remember that sculpture I was working on? Well, it was a unicorn, and the horn broke off, so now it's a zebra, okay? But I still think I'm gonna get an A, right? Mason, how was your week? Well, Dad, you know, it's kind of tough. Joey's kind of a jerk. Actually, he stole some cigarettes from his mom. He wanted me to smoke them, but I said no, because I knew what a hard time you had quitting smoking, Dad. How about that? Is that so hard?
Dad, these questions are kind of hard to answer.
What is so hard to answer? About what sculpture are you making?
It's abstract.
Okay, that's good. See, I didn't know that. I didn't know you were even interested in abstract art.
I'm not. They make us do it.
But Dad, I mean, why is it all on us though? You know, what about you? How was your week? You know, who do you hang out with? Do you have a girlfriend? What have you been up to?
I see your point. So we should just let it happen more naturally, right? That's what you're saying. Okay, that's what we'll do. Starting now.
Anything you want to add to that?
I think you've said it all.
Yeah, I think I have too. They play outside around a sculpture garden, having a good old time. Then they're playing with a football at the park. Then they go to a baseball game. As Dad's talking baseball, Mason asks him if he has a job. Dad says he just finished his second exam, but doesn't mention anything about the actual job and what it is. The three go to his house for the night. We're introduced to his roommate, Jimmy, who has made a mess and forgot to hide the paraphernalia. It's kind of a pigsty. Jimmy and Dad sing and play a weird song based on how Olivia and the kids have a new life and Dad's left out.
Well, Saturday night was a lunar eclipse. I sang him a song, well, something like this. Well, go to sleep, my weary babies. Let the sirens roll on by. Tonight we're safe here in Houston with this your daddy's lullaby. The mother's got a new husband now. He seems alright. I wonder if he's reading them stories and kissing them goodnight. Well, babysitters say they miss me. I know I shouldn't, hope it's true. The teacher says my son paints pictures of a family all in blue. She says she caught him whispering to the window, well, Daddy, please come home. I know I could call him up, but what if his mother answers the phone?
Dad tucks Samantha into bed. Jimmy comes in to say goodnight. And then Dad and Mason lay on the couches in the living room together. Mason asks him if he thinks that there's such a thing as elves and magic. Dad goes along with it in a cool way, really. Then this is when Mason Sr. drops the kids back off to Bill's house. Mason, Randy, and the neighborhood boys stare at the laptop. It's probably porn. Mindy comes in and tells them that Bill is making them get haircuts. And then this is when Mason gets his head shaved. Bill says to Mason it's like he's going to be a real man now, not a little girl. Mason is not amused. As Mason's in bed the next morning, we see him fake an illness. Everyone's laughing it off. No one's buying it, not even Mom. Mom ends up taking him to school, but before dropping him off, he tells her about how upset he is about Bill making him get that haircut. She starts to understand and feel for him and says that she'll have a talk about it later. And then, Mason gets out of the truck, but not before telling Olivia that Bill is such a jerk. And then Mason walks into the classroom. All the kids laugh and make fun of him for his new haircut. Except Mason gets a new note that says, Mason, I think your hair looks really cool, Nicole. Alright, it's 2007 now. Mason and Randy are riding their bikes home. When they get home, they find Olivia laying down on the floor in the garage. She's crying. They ask what's wrong, but she tells them to go inside. This is when Bill comes out and tells her to get off the floor. We really don't know what's going on, but it's something pretty bad. Moments later, Bill comes in with a bottle of booze. He makes a big scene and yells at Mason, saying, "You really don't like me much, do you?" He then throws his glass at Mason and his bottle at Randy. And he's going off, man. Like, Bill is definitely... Man, this Bill is a real piece of work. Kids are in Mason's room watching a video, and they're talking about Bill's big scene. This is when Bill makes all the kids give them their cell phones. It's worth mentioning this is actually later. Like, it's the next scene, but the perception of time is that it takes place like later on or the next day or something, because Olivia's gone, and he's got the kids lined up, asking them questions, grilling them, taking their cell phones, and makes them all get in the car, and he's drunk, and they all go to find her. He goes to pull out money from the ATM at the liquor store, but it's been wiped out. She took all the money before him, and then this is when Bill goes back to the liquor store I mentioned before, and writes a blank check, not a blank check, but he writes a check to the kids, the boys, sends them inside and has them cash it. It's a $500 check. He has them go ahead and cash it. It's a liquor store. Nah. This is not how this works. And in a real life situation, that shit would never ever fly the way it does in this movie. I just wanted to make that known. Just for the record. But they do. The boys get a cash. They cash the check, get $500, and then Bill is weaving in and out of traffic on the way home, scaring the kids, almost hitting cars. And then the next thing we see is Olivia arriving back at the house with her friend Carol, yelling for the kids to come downstairs. Bill tries to step in and get in the way, but ends up letting them go eventually. Olivia tells Bill that she's leaving him. They get away. She gets the kids. They're off. Now, I remember watching this movie. What was your biggest complaint about this scene after it happened?
I felt bad for the step siblings. Like, I felt bad for everybody, but I mainly felt bad for the step siblings because we don't know what's going to happen with them.
It's not before long we eventually do find out what happens to them. And they're fine, for the record. Child services, wonderful thing. The next day, Olivia drops Samantha off at a new junior high school. She's pretty pissed because she had to leave their old home, school, clothes, and everything behind. She's literally wearing the same clothes, has not showered, and she's mad. But not as mad as Olivia, because Olivia bites back, and she's got a very valid point.
Mom, this is awful. You're dumping me in some parking lot of this school where I don't even know anyone. I'm leaving all my friends, and I didn't even get to say goodbye. I don't know where to go.
Okay, Samantha, you go right through that door. The office is right there. They're expecting you. They're going to give you your schedule. Here's your lunch money. I will pick you up right here at 3:30.
I'm wearing dirty clothes because you wouldn't even let us get our stuff. We don't even have a place to live. This sucks.
Samantha, I'm doing the best I can. And you're right, it sucks. But it doesn't suck half as much as having a drunk fool slam your head against a wall. So cut your horse shit attitude. Put your seatbelt on.
And then Mason starts at his new school, and his teacher tells Kenny, his new buddy, to show him around a little bit. They get along pretty well off the bat. Which brings us to 2008. We got Mason and Samantha going door to door, trying to put up Obama, Joe Biden signs in the yards. Not a lot of takers. We find out that this is their dad who's made up all the signs, and he's handing them all out. And when they're driving down the street, he makes Mason get out and steal a McCain sign from someone's yard. While at the cafe where they go to eat afterward, Samantha tells her dad that she can't go camping with him because she's going to a party. Dad attempts to tell her to have safe sex and not make mistakes. A lady named Tammy runs into them, and turns out that she has a date with the dad the next day. This means Dad and Mason Jr. are going camping alone. We see them at a riverbed swimming, and Dad tells him that he's got a job with an insurance company. Mason asks Dad if the lady at the bowling alley was his girlfriend. He says kind of. We find out that Mason has kind of a girlfriend too. Dad gives him advice on how to talk to her. And then that night, we see them sitting around the campfire, roasting s'mores, talking about Star Wars. The next morning, Mason Sr. gets out, takes a leak on the fireplace, and off they go. Olivia drops Mason off at school and tells him that Samantha's going to pick him up. Mason then has an altercation with some bullies in the bathroom, but he doesn't get beat up. Mason waits outside. Sure enough, Samantha didn't pick him up. Mason, then we see him next at Olivia's class. She's teaching college now. She invites the class that she's teaching to come over for a Thanksgiving soiree, like a little get-together at her home. And then we see Olivia yelling at Samantha for not picking up Mason. 2009, Mason's friend Tommy stops by and asks if he wants to go camping. Olivia says sure, but she wants the phone number. This leads to the camping at the... It's not so much camping as it is boys hanging out at a house that is still under construction that will soon be theirs. They're drinking, breaking boards, throwing blades at wood. The older brothers are there being bro-y and showing off, acting tough in front of the little ones, and yeah, it's a moment. And then we got the Thanksgiving get-together with Olivia's college students and such. There's a particular girl who's there. She goes into Mason's bedroom, and he shows her his art and graffiti that he made. At the get-together, we also see a student named Jim talking to Olivia and everyone else about his tour in Iraq and 9/11. Later, the college girl from Mason's room plays the guitar and others sing along. Mason can see Olivia and the student Jim outside talking on the porch, which brings us to 2010. At this point now, where are you at mentally with the story? I want to say at this point, Mason's your age, so where are you at watching this?
I don't know if I can relate to it at this point that much, mainly because a lot of it's him going to, like, parties, which I don't do that much, but...
You're damn right you don't.
But, yeah.
All right, so in 2010, Mason gets dropped off by a bunch of teenagers. He makes out with a girl and then takes a few puffs of a joint before getting out. And when he goes inside, we see Jim and Olivia. Other students are having a get-together. Mason walks in, and his mom asks if he's been drinking or smoking. She don't care. It's implied that they've been living with Jim now. Back to Dad. He comes back to pick up Samantha and Mason in his new minivan. It's implied that Dad is now married to a lady named Annie, and they have a baby named Cooper. It's also Mason's 15th birthday. Jim got Mason a camera, and Dad's impressed that he's into it. All right, so since we last saw Mason Sr., there was not an Annie. There was not a baby. I just feel like this whole Annie, this is... This... I'm not even going to bring it up. Also, while they're getting picked up, we see that the plumbers are there fixing a pipe in the backyard. Olivia encourages one of them to go to school, to a community college at night. Olivia, Jim, Annie, and Dad talk, and they seem to get along very well with one another. Annie, Dad, and the kids drive off to Houston for the weekend. In the minivan, Mason and his dad talk about the old GTO. Mason gets pretty pissed because he remembers that Dad said that it would be his when he turned 16, but Dad says that did not happen, and it certainly wouldn't be fair to your sister. Annie and Samantha watch a Lady Gaga video for telephone, and Annie says that she will buy them tickets and they can stay with her next time that she's in town. Dad gives Mason his birthday present, which is a CD of the Beatles called The Black Album. It's not an actual release. Like, don't go seeking out the Black Album from the Beatles, because the only Black Album I know of is from Metallica. No, it's a basic, what he tells, he actually explains to Mason that it's something that he put together. It's all the best songs from the Beatles from when they were together, to the solo projects like Wings and whatnot, to it's basically his dad's personal collection of favorite Beatles tunes and other surrounding member groups like Wings, as I mentioned.
Annie?
Yep.
Will you give me the little birthday present for Mason?
Yeah, babe.
All right, this one needs a little explanation, okay? Open it up. I call that the Beatles Blackout. All right, what it is the best of John, Paul, George, and Ringo solo post-breakup.
Thanks.
Yeah, basically I put the band back together for you. You know, when you ever listen to too much of the solo stuff, it kind of becomes a drag, you know? But you put them next to each other, right? And they start to elevate each other. And then you can hear it. It's the Beatles, you know?
I don't know. I think I always just like Paul the best.
It doesn't matter, you know, you're missing the point. There is no favorite Beatle. That's what I'm saying. It's in the balance. That's what made them the greatest fucking rock bands in the world, okay? You know, and there's this decade of music out there that's been scattered, all right? And now it has been carefully found, arranged, and ordered for you by your loving father.
Very arranged and very organized over and over again by your loving father.
Yes. So, I mean, look at that. Top of volume 2, first 4 tracks. You got Band on the Run, into My Sweet Lord, into Jealous Guy, into Photograph. Come on. It's like the perfect segue. You got Paul, who takes you to the party. George, who talks to you about God. John, who says, no, it's about love and pain. And then Ringo, who just says, hey, can we enjoy what we have while we have it? It's a good record. I shit you not. Cool.
So then we see that they're staying with Grandpa Cliff and Nana at the ranch house. They sing happy birthday to Mason and they eat cake. Nana gives Mason a Bible for his birthday, and Annie and his dad give him a suit and tie. Meanwhile, Grandpa Cliff gives him a shotgun for his birthday. It's kind of a different present for your 15th birthday. Here you go, son. Here's a shotgun.
Pop would give me that for my 15th birthday.
Yeah, that ain't happening. Yeah, they're shooting guns with the shotgun next. Mason is hitting his target after a few attempts. And then they're seen at church with everybody, where Mason's wearing his new suit. Annie's parents seem really into it, but Mason really, it's not his thing. Church, the whole experience. Not for him. Nope. They walk through the woods as Mason is taking photographs. They talk about Cooper's upcoming baptism, and turns out Dad is becoming one of those God people, which takes us to 2011. Mason works on his photos in the school's dark room, where his teacher comes in and gives him a pretty long speech about how he'll never make it as an artist if he doesn't try harder and make a better work ethic. He forces him to photograph the upcoming football game as punishment for spending so much time in there. I guess that works. If you hate football, and it's like, yeah, go do it. Olivia makes Samantha help post pictures online for an auction. Mason comes down wearing fingernail polish. Jim isn't really having it. Kind of gives him grief and makes fun of him about it. And that's kind of the first of a couple things we're going to see about Jim that kind of unravels. Mason is now at the football game taking pictures. He, Nick, and his friend Chase are going to a party after the game. At said party, the kids are drinking and a band's playing. He talks to Sheena. In a quiet place, they talk about how Mason wants to live in a world where people don't judge and control him all the time. He says he feels comfortable talking to Sheena. So then later he comes home late. Jim's on the porch with a lot of empty beer cans. So, Olivia, you know how to pick them, don't you? Jim yells at him for being late and says that it's his house, so Mason must do what he says. Mason gets pretty pissed off, says, you're not my dad, goes inside, the whole nine. And that takes us to 2012. It's implied that during this time that Olivia has gotten away from Jim. They've now divorced. And they've got a lot of debt to pay off. So she decides she's going to sell the house they're living in to make ends meet. Mason, meanwhile, is working at a restaurant. He's flirting with a girl there named April. when his boss comes in and tells him to pick up the pace and to get back to work instead of flirting around with April. Mason video chats with his dad. He tells him he's going to visit Samantha in college with Sheena. Dad tells him to be careful driving. His mom gives Mason money to use in case of emergency. And then that's when we get Mason and Sheena on their big date down in Austin. Mason tries to explain how life is better without a Facebook account and technology. Because, you know, teenagers, man, they got to be cool and they got to be different. And that's when we meet Samantha's boyfriend, and they're all playing pool together at a bar. Samantha and Sheena are talking about the college life together. And then next thing we know, Mason and Sheena are going to a concert, and then they go to a cafe, talking about what colleges they like and about their future together over some queso. They're up all night. They go up to the roof, and they kiss. Next morning, we see that Mason and Sheena have slept at Samantha's. When her roommate comes in, unexpectedly, she walks in and finds them together and says that she's going to go down to the quarry to have something to eat while they get socialized and ready, or while they get ready and get the hell out, basically. Which brings us to the final year, 2013, of our story. Mason, we see, has won a silver medal for pictures that he took of Sheena. A teacher comes over and congratulates him and wishes him the best of luck in life. He then gets a text from Sheena, and that's when this is revealed that Mason and Sheena have since broke up. They're fighting because Sheena's going to prom with a college guy and that she's been cheating on Mason with him. So that's when we see Mason and his friend Nick riding home from graduation. Mason makes Nick come inside with him when he gets to the house to drop him off. He obliges. They walk in together, and Olivia takes a bunch of pictures with Nick and Grandma and everybody. Carol and Abby made it to the party. They're the two from the beginning. Well, not the beginning, but they're the two from earlier when the alcoholic husband, drunk Bill, whatever, when they left there, they went and stayed with Olivia's friend Carol and her little girl Abby. So they make a surprise appearance at this party. We see Mason and Samantha talking to them. Mom, Dad, Samantha, Mr. Wood, and some others are just going around toasting Mason, giving him preparation speeches about life and such. We got Catherine talking to Dad and Annie. She's pretty rude. And Dad talks to Olivia and thanks her for everything. He then offers her some money for throwing the party and just tells her for the first time that she did good. And she was pretty surprised to hear it, and she's pretty happy that he did say it finally, that he's finally acknowledging her good doing, you know, because after all, Olivia did raise these two by herself. So, and then later on that night, we see that Dad brought Mason with him to a show backstage. His buddy Jimmy from earlier, the old roommate. He's having a concert. They're backstage talking about breaking up with Sheena, and Dad gives him advice. Jimmy then decides to dedicate a song to Mason because he's so big and now a graduate. Mason, Samantha, and Olivia are now eating at a cafe. The next scene, they're talking about items that they want to keep because Olivia is moving to a smaller apartment. The restaurant manager, Ernesto, comes over, and he is revealed to be the man who was doing the pipe installation earlier, who Olivia told he should get a job because he's pretty smart, do night classes at a community college. Well, he did so, and now he's the manager. So he thanks her for everything, for the advice, and tells her that lunch is on him.
Carrie's back home too. We just hung out, you know. Peach Smirnoffs, they just go down so easy.
No, hey. That's not an excuse. You could still pack boxes. These people want to move in as soon as possible.
Hi, guys. I'm Ernesto. How are you? You probably don't remember me, but I worked on your septic line years ago.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it or not, you changed my life. You told me that day that I was smart and that I should go to school. I took your advice. I signed up for English classes, And then a year later, I went to community college, and I got my associate's degree. And I'm working on my bachelor's now at Texas State, and also one of the managers here.
That's great.
It's good to see you, because I really wanted a chance to thank you for that. Gracias. It really meant a lot to me. Don't worry about lunch. It's on me. It's the least I can do.
Thanks.
You guys should listen to her. She's a smart lady.
Thank you.
Back at home, we got Mason packing everything up to move out. Olivia then breaks down and says it's pretty sad that he's leaving because everything in life was about basically her setting everything up for this moment. And now that this moment has occurred, she's just going to live by herself, an old, sad, lonely lady, she says.
You know what I'm realizing? My life is just gonna go like that. This series of milestones. Getting married, having kids, getting divorced. The time that we thought you were dyslexic, when I taught you how to ride a bike. Getting divorced again, getting my master's degree, finally getting the job I wanted. Sending Samantha off to college, sending you off to college. You know what's next? Huh? It's my fucking funeral!
He really don't know what to say to this. Doesn't really know how to respond. But he leaves. He's going to college. He meets his roommate Dalton and his girlfriend Barb. The two of them introduce Mason to her roommate Nicole. They all decide to ditch orientation and go hiking in the woods, eating some edible brownies beforehand. The four of them are hiking, and Mason talks to Nicole. She seems to be creative and outgoing like Mason is. Right away they click, these two. And then the four of them watch the sunset and howl at the moon. Mason is sitting next to Nicole, having a moment, seizing the moment, fade to black, the end. That is Boyhood. All right, so trivia. I definitely got some trivia for this episode. All right, so Richard Linklater cast his daughter, Lorelei Linklater, as Samantha because she was always singing and dancing around the house and wanted to be in his movies. But about a third of the way through filming, she lost interest and asked for her character to be killed off. Linklater refused, saying it was too violent for what he was planning. And then she eventually regained her enthusiasm and continued to work on the project. Eller Coltrane, who plays the boy of the title, was 7 years old when the film started, and he was 19 when production finally wrapped. The film was shot over 45 days from May 2002 to August 2013, which, roughly speaking, is spanning more than 4,000 days. Ethan Hawke presents his fictional son with a gift of the Black Album on his 15th birthday. In real life, Ethan Hawke compiled the individual Beatles songs into the Black Album to help his daughter Maya deal with the breakup with his marriage with Uma Thurman. Each year of Mason's life is covered in an average of 14 minutes of on-screen time. Boyhood is one of only 11 films to receive a Metascore of 100, the highest score possible that can be attained on Metacritic, and is so far the only film to receive this score upon its original release. During the 12-year shoot, both Ethan Hawke and Patricia Arquette actually experienced divorces of their own, remarriages, and had other children. The precise time frame of the film is never made completely clear. The constantly changing time setting can only be identified by pop culture references, the soundtrack, and advances in the technology used by the characters. The production staff was careful to only use songs and scenes that took place in or soon after the songs' respective years of production. None of the actors were contractually obligated to return to the film each year because of a law under California Labor Code that makes it illegal to contact employees for more than 7 years of work. So essentially, this was a film full of favors, more or less, if you ask me, which is good. It's not a knock, just an observation. Linklater's method behind production was essentially to make several 10 to 15 minute short films over the course of 12 years. each depicting a year in the life of the boy, and then edit them together as a feature film at the end. Christopher Nolan revealed this film was his favorite film of 2014, despite himself directing Interstellar, which came out the same year. President Barack Obama's favorite film of 2014. Coincidentally, President Obama's first presidential campaign is explicitly referenced during the 2008 portion of the film. The film has no original score. Its soundtrack is made up completely of previously published material. Despite playing the role of Mason's older sister Samantha, Lorelei Linklater is only 3 months older than Eller Coltrane in real life. And that does it for the trivia. All right, let's wrap up this sucker. Mads, who is your unbiased MVP selection for Boyhood?
Mason, because, well, he is basically the main character. I mean, we're watching him grow up, so.
Okay, easy enough. I'm different. I'm actually leaning more towards Patricia Arquette. I'd argue that this is her movie just as much as it is Eller's. Her growth as a struggling single mother who goes through her own problems it's just as important to the story as anything else. Rightfully so. She won the Academy Award for this role. She is by far the strongest character of this movie. And I'd argue, outside of Mason, the most important character of this story. And yeah, that's why I go with Patricia Arquette as Olivia as my MVP. Mads, what is your Be Kind, Rewind, most rewatchable moment?
It is the last scene where him and his new college friends are just on, like a hill, just watching the sunset, talking.
Of the entire movie, which is almost 3 hours long, how come that scene, the last scene, is your most rewatchable moment?
Because it's a pretty scene. A very pretty scene.
Everything with Bill and his kids from 2005 to 2007, it's the strongest section of the film. It shows them at their lowest. I think it's important to highlight that during the struggles that they go through. And the core of those problems really kind of come alive with these key scenes. And I think without them, you have just another boring, uneventful journey. I think this adds to it. And again, I think highlighting your central characters at their lowest is an important thing. It shows a lot of growth in their characters as the film progresses and goes on. And it shows a lot of depth in character development. And that's why I think that I'd argue that this film cannot really be what it is without those moments. So, yeah. Kiddo, what is your double feature pairing?
I was thinking, I don't think I have a double feature pairing because I haven't seen any movies like this that I can at least remember.
All right. I'm going to be pairing this movie up with a film from 2007 called Into the Wild. It is a Sean Penn movie about a young adult who hikes across the country into Alaska. And that story is akin to Mason on his own hike when Boyhood ends. It's strong character development, like I was just talking about, just like with Boyhood. And it's a journey, just like Boyhood, kind of about a person becoming his own. And that's exactly how I look at Boyhood. Even though Into the Wild is not about a boy's journey to becoming a man, this is rather a man's journey about finding his inner spirit, and based on a true story. And it's a damn good movie, really is. It's called Into the Wild. Seek it out. It's Emile Hirsch, directed by Sean Penn, and also stars Vince Vaughn. So yeah, Into the Wild. Star power. All right, Mads, what is your final rating for Boyhood?
My final rating is a 4 because it's a good movie. I liked it a lot, like I said in the beginning. But yes, I can relate to it. But I don't think it's a movie that I just rewatch over and over again to get it to like a 4.5 or just a 5 in general. I think a 4 is a good rating for me.
All right, I'm giving Boyhood 5 stars. This is just something different, and it works, and it's just something that you've never seen before. And again, it works. The performances across the board are great. Ethan Hawke, love him to death. I think he's given an appropriate amount of time in this movie. And it's from Richard Linklater, who has a very impressive filmography with films that tell stories that are real and feel natural, whether it be his breakthrough success in Slacker, to Dazed and Confused, to Everybody Wants Some, to this. The man has a craft, and this is no exception. This is no different. I think the idea of filming the movie in real time over a 12-year period is not only gutsy, but it is impressive isn't even the word. It is something that you've just never seen before, and it is quite the visual. Everything from the soundtrack to the moments of those times, it's kind of like watching a movie in a time machine, really, because I remember the events, the Obama campaign, the Iraq War, to the songs that highlight the film, like Soulja Boy, Crank That, to the first song you even hear in the movie, Coldplay's Yellow. If you're still listening to this episode and you haven't seen Boyhood, you owe it to yourself to go out and seek this movie down. All right, guys, the next time we'll be back is on Christmas Day. We'll be presenting a Mad Dad Christmas Spectacular edition of the show. So come back Christmas morning and check that out. I'm not going to go into what we'll be talking about, but it'll be special. It'll be different, and looking forward to it. Before we get out of here, just want to do what I usually do and remind you guys you can check out previous episodes of the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google, Overcast, Podbean, Breaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and wherever else you enjoy your favorite shows. Check us out on Facebook.com at
Mad Dad Movie Review,
Instagram.com at
Mad Dad Movie Review,
YouTube.com at
Mad Dad Movie Review,
and finally Twitter.com at
Mad Dad Movie Pod.
And of course, guys, if you have any questions, comments, or requests, you can always email them to maddadmoviereview@gmail.com. And like I said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in to a new episode of the show. We'll be back with you guys later on this week, Christmas morning. Other than that, mask up, stay safe, take care of one another, and yeah, until next time.
I'm Mads.
And I'm her dad. And this has been Mad Dad Movie Review. Alright guys, take care.